You're listening to the Okanagan Reader, where we present readings of short stories and other works that have been released under a Creative Commons license by their creators. In keeping with the license, these recordings are released under a matching license. You are free to listen to and share these readings as set out in their version of the Creative Commons license.
Today's reading is part 1 of Survivor's Ball, or The Donner Party, a short story in the collection Stranger Things Happen by Kelly Link. And now, Survivor's Ball, Part 1. 1. Travel. They had been traveling together for 3 days in Jasper's rented car when they came to the dark mouth of the tunnel into Milford Sound. Serena was telling Jasper something very important. What did Jasper know about Serena after 3 days? That she didn't wear underwear, that she was allergic to bees, that she liked to talk. She said the strangest things. That she was from Pittsburgh. Listening to her voice made him feel less homesick. Jasper was driving on the wrong side of the road, in a place where water spun down the wrong way in the drain, on a continent that was on what he thought of as the upside-down part of the globe, where they celebrated Christmas on the beach, and it snowed in the summer, which was the winter. A girl from Pittsburgh was a good thing, like an anchor. Every homesick traveler should have one. "That thing you said to me in the bar was so cute," Serena said. "You know, when we met." Jasper had said nothing. His tooth hurt. He mimed to show that it was hurting. "Poor guy," Serena said. They drove down the avenue of the disappearing mountain, through groves of sword-like cabbage trees. The road circled up, between cracked gray boulders, and the little red car went up the road like a toy pulled on a string. "There was a guy in Auckland who had been to Milford Sound," Serena said. "He told me it was like standing at the edge of the world. It's funny. I'd met him before in Tokyo, I think. Once you've been traveling for a while, you run into the same people everywhere you go. But I never remember their names. You end up saying things to each other like, 'Do I know you? Were you the guy in that restaurant? That one with the huge fish tank in Amsterdam?' You end up writing down your addresses on little pieces of paper for each other, and then you always lose the pieces of paper. But it's okay, because you'll run into each other again." "It's not a very big world," she said sadly. They had been late leaving the youth hostel in Teanau, because Serena slept past noon, and then she thought she might like a shower. There was no hot water left, but she spent a long time in the bathroom anyway, writing in her journal. Jasper hoped she wasn't writing about him. He consulted his guidebook, and then the hostel manager, and still managed to get lost on his way to the corner dairy to buy aspirin for his tooth, and then lost again on the way back. In the end, he had to ask a little girl wearing a red parka and striped black and white stockings for directions. When he came back, Serena was sitting on the bed, writing postcards. Her clothes and her books and other things were scattered all around her. She looked completely at home in the hostel room, as if she had lived there for years. But everything went back into her backpack, snip-snap, and then the room looked very empty. Nothing but a lonely bed and a heap of sheets. Before they left Teanau, they stopped at a pub for lunch. Jasper couldn't eat, but he paid for Serena's meal. She flirted with the barman, sticking strands of her hair into her wide red mouth and licking them into dark glossy tips. She told the barman that she was running away from home, that she was going to travel all the way around the world and just keep on going, that she liked New Zealand beer. She didn't say anything at all about Jasper, who was standing at the bar right there beside her, but her hand had been curled in a comfortable way in his pocket down under the counter. They hadn't seen a single car since they'd left the main road and headed for the pass into Milford Sound. After enduring ominous weather reports all the way from Queenstown to Teanau, he guessed it wasn't surprising. Alone, Jasper would have headed up the east coast to Dunedin, rather than making the long drive into the west and Fjordland. But Serena had a great desire to see Milford Sound, and he was quickly learning that Serena was seldom thwarted in her great desires. 2 nights ago, he had been sitting in bed watching her sleep. Dust floated in the cold, moonlighted air, and he sneezed. A piece of his tooth, a back molar, fell into his hand. In the morning, when Serena woke up, she had put it in an airmail envelope, sealed the envelope, and written Jasper's tooth on it. He had the envelope in his pocket now, and every once in a while his tongue went up to touch the changed, broken place in his mouth. "I've never met anyone named Jasper before," Serena said. "It's old-fashioned." Jasper looked at her. She looked back, smirking, black hair tucked into her mouth. She was doodling on the back of her own hand with a fountain pen, making thin, jagged lines. It was an expensive pen. His name was engraved on it. "So's Serena," he said carefully, around the tooth. "My grandmother's youngest brother's name was Jasper. He died in a war." "I'm not named after anybody," Serena said. "In fact, I've always hated my name. It makes me sound like a lake or something. Lake Serena, Lake Placid. I don't even like to swim." Jasper kept his eyes on the road. "I never learned how to swim," he said. "Then hope that there will always be enough lifeboats," she said, and closed one eye slowly. He watched her in the rearview mirror. It was not an altogether friendly wink. She put the pen down on the dashboard. "My grandmother gave me that pen," he said. He'd lent it to Serena in the bar in Queenstown when they met. She hadn't given it back yet, although he had bought her a ballpoint at a chemist's the next day. He'd also bought her a bright red lipstick, which he had thought was funny for some reason, a bar of chocolate, and a tiny plastic dinosaur because she said she didn't like flowers. He wasn't really sure what you were supposed to buy for a girl you met in the bar, but she liked the dinosaur. "I never had a grandmother," Serena said. "Not a single one. Not a mother, not a brother, not a sister, not a cousin. In fact, there was a general drought of relatives where I was concerned. A long dry spell. Although once I brought home a kitten, and my father let me keep it for a while. That kitten was the only relative who ever purely loved me. Does your grandmother love you?" "I guess," Jasper said. "We have the same ears. That's what everyone says. But I have my father's crummy teeth." "My father's dead," Serena said, "and so is the kitten." "I'm sorry," Jasper said, and Serena shrugged. She held her left hand away from her, examining her drawing. It looked like a map to Jasper, pointy stick drawings of mountains and lines for roads. She stuck a finger in her mouth and began to smudge the lines away carefully, one by one. "Their ears aren't so bad," she said. The radio went on and off in a blur of static. "Unseasonable weather. Party of trekkers on the Milford track. Missing for nearly. Between dumpling and doughboy huts. Rescue teams." Then nothing but static. Jasper turned off the radio. "They might as well give up," Serena said. "They're all dead by now, buried under an avalanche somewhere. They'll find the bodies in a couple of weeks when the snow melts." She sounded almost cheerful. There were tall drifts of snow on either side of the road. Every 500 meters, they passed black and yellow signs reading, "Danger! Avalanche area, do not stop vehicle." Every sign said exactly the same thing. But Serena read them out loud anyway in different voices. Elmer Fudd, Humphrey Bogart, the barman's flirty New Zealand sing-song. "Danger, Will Robinson Crusoe," she said. "Killer robots and tsunamis from Mars ahead. Also, German tourists. Do not stop your vehicle. Do not roll down your window to feed the lions. Remain inside your vehicle at all times. Do not pass go. Do not pick up hitchhikers." Whoops, too late. All day the sky had been the color of a blue china plate, flat and suspended upon the narrow teeth of the mountains. The road wound precariously between the mountains, and the car threaded the road. The sun was going down. Just where the road seemed about to lift over the broken mountain rim, where the sun was sliding down to meet them, a black pinprick marked the tunnel into Milford Sound. As Jasper drove, the pinprick became a door, and the door became a mouth that ate up first the road and then the car. Serena was reading out of Jasper's guidebook. "Started in 1935, she said. "Did you know it took 20 years to complete? It's almost a mile long. 4 men died in rock falls during the blasting. You should always call a mountain grandmother to show respect. Did you know that? Turn on the headlights." They went from the pink gray of the snowdrifts into sudden dark. The road went up at a 45-degree angle, the car laboring against the steep climb. The headlights were sullen and small, reflecting off the greasy black swell of the tunnel walls. The walls were not smooth. They bulged and pressed against the tarmac road. In the headlights, the walls ran with condensation. Over the noise of the car, Jasper could hear the plink, plink of fat droplets falling down the black rock. He touched his tongue to his tooth. "Why, grandmother, what a big dark tunnel you have," he said. The terrible weight of the mountain above him, the white snow shrouding the black mountain, the stale wet air in the tunnel, all pressed down inexorably upon him in the dark. He felt strangely sad. He felt lost. He felt dizzy. He sank like a slow stone in a cold well. "Hello, sailor," Serena said. "Welcome to Grandmother's Tunnel of Love." She put her long white hand on his leg and looked at him sidelong. He sank down, was pressed down heavy, his tooth whining like a dog. He couldn't bear the weight of Serena's black eyes, her thin, shining face. "Are you all right?" He shook his head. "Claustrophobic," he managed to say. He could barely keep his foot on the gas pedal. He saw them spinning through the dark towards a black wall, a frozen door of ice. And then he had to stop the car. "You drive," he said, and fumbled the door open and went stumbling over to the passenger's door. Serena shifted to the driver's side, and he sat down in her warm seat. It took all his strength to shut the door again. "Please," he said, "hurry." She drove competently, talking at him the whole time. "You never told me you were claustrophobic. Lucky for you, I came along. We should be out soon." They came out into night. There was nothing to distinguish one darkness from the other but dirty snow in the headlights. Yet Jasper felt the great clinging weight fall away from him. His tongue went up to touch his broody tooth. "Stop the car," he said. He threw up, kneeling beside the road. When he stood up, his knees were wet with melted snow. "I think I'm all right again," he said. "You drive if you want to," she said. "Your call, pal. It's about another 45 minutes to the hotel, and you can't miss it. There's only one road and one hotel." Iced pine cones shattered like glass under the wheels of the car. The road was steeper, circling down this time. "What does the guidebook say about the hotel?" he asked. Serena said, "Well, it's an interesting story. This is funny. When I called to make the reservation, the man said they were booked solid. It's a private party or something. But I talked sweet, told him we had come a long way, a really long way." She stuck her feet up on the dashboard, and leaned her head on his shoulder. He could see her in the mirror, looking pleased with herself. Jasper said, "The hotel is full?" He pulled over to the side of the road and put his head against the steering wheel. Serena said, "This is the third time you've stopped the car. I have to pee." "Is the hotel full or isn't it?" Jasper said. "Have some chewing gum," Serena said. "Your breath smells like vomit. Don't worry so much." He couldn't chew the gum, but he sucked on it. He started the car again. "Is your tooth killing you?" she said. "Yeah," he said. "Revenge of the sugar cereal." They went another 500 yards when something ran across the road. It looked like a small person scrambling across the road on all fours. It had a long, bony tail. Jasper slammed on the brakes and swerved. Serena's arm flailed out and walloped him, catching his jaw precisely upon the broken tooth. He howled. Serena fell forward, knocking her skull loudly against the dashboard. The car came to a stop, and, after a moment, during which neither of them was capable of speech, he said, "Are you okay? Did we hit it?" "What was it?" she said. "A possum? My head hurts. And my hand." "It wasn't a possum," he said. "Too big. Maybe a deer." "There are no deer in New Zealand," she said. "The only native mammal is the bat. It's just us poor unsuspecting marsupials around here. Marsupials." Then she snorted. He was amazed to see that tears were streaming down her face. She was laughing so hard she couldn't speak. "What's a marsupial?" he said. "Are you laughing at me? What's so funny?" She punched his shoulder. "A possum is a marsupial. It carries its young in a pouch. It's just the word marsupial. It always cracks me up. It's like pantyhose or crumhorn." It didn't seem that funny to him, but he laughed experimentally. "Marsupial," he said. "Huh." "Your mouth is bleeding," she said, and snorted again. "Here." She took a dirty Kleenex out of her bag and licked it. Then she applied it to his lower lip. "Let me drive." "Maybe it was a dog," he said. There was nothing on the road now.